So this was quite something to see. This was Candace Owens on the Piers Morgan show in a debate with Rabbi Shmuley. Now, you know, people sometimes look to us as two Jewish guys to debunk Zionism. Max and Aaron at the Gray Zone, two Jewish guys to debunk Zionism. Well, apparently, Candace Owens is pretty good at it too. And she is not a Jewish guy like us.
She's able to bring the full-on Jesus rage.
Yeah, right. Exactly. She makes this work pretty well. This is a monologue that went somewhat viral for good reason.
Prior to October 7th, I don't think many people were engaged with what is happening in Israel. You know, we kind of all said the same thing. Israel is our friend and ally. I count myself among those people. Post October 7th, the world, and especially I would say Zionists in media, were demanding that we all pay attention. And when we began to pay attention, we didn't like what we saw. You cannot tell me to ever feel comfortable with 18,000 children being ruthlessly murdered. You can't get me to feel comfortable as a Christian with the amount of more explosives dropped, tons of explosives dropped on Gaza than were dropped in Hiroshima. This doesn't make sense to me. Gaza is 30 miles long, 7 miles wide. It's incredibly dense population. And this is, by the way, according to Haaretz, that 40,000 Palestinians have been murdered. I believe they're getting those numbers from the Gaza Health Ministry. And here's what I would like to say to you, Rabbi, since you're quoting scripture, okay? The one that's relevant to me is woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. And if you'd like to dive into a little more scripture, I think what's relevant is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. And I'm speaking directly to you, Rabbi Shmuley. The fact that you would try to say, I am Jewish and this is what I believe, and do and say the things that you are doing. People can see and hear evil, and what you are doing right now is an act of evil. The lies that you are telling, not just on me, but also on my family members, are a good example for the world to see what we are referring to when we call something radical Zionism.
Damn.
That is what John of Patmos might have called a sick burn.
Yeah. Right. That is what you call a sick burn. And you're right. That is bringing the Jesus rage. Someone with that vocabulary that she could just go to and recite. Didn't look like she was reading. Looks like she had that memorized. You know, what a conversation like that exposes is, amongst other things, obviously, the secular nature of the Zionist project. So there's a guy who, you know, presents himself, Rabbi Shmuley, this great man of faith and deep religious conviction. And because of that, he is this servant to the Israeli state. She basically calls him out on the basic premise of that claim there, and does it quite well without missing a beat. And, you know, this is one of the first times we featured Candace Owens on the show. And, you know, I don't have anything for or against featuring her, but I thought this was a particular case of a Christian basically calling the rabbi. Basically, she's saying you're a poser. Basically, you're hiding behind Judaism. What you're saying is actually not rooted in any sort of like philosophical, moral, or religious conviction, which exposes the lie of radical Zionism. I mean, which she calls him out for. And his response to this, as the interview goes on, and, you know, he rambles a lot. You know, he did. You know, this is a great tactic of Zionists, is they just spray words all over the place and go on and on and on. He goes on to say there's a 1-to-1 civilian death rate, which is lower than World War I. I mean, just absolute utter nonsense. He does not address what she said. That's why this clip ends here, because he just comes right off that, because there is no defense against that. You're exposed right there. What she said there is accurate, and there is no defense against that. Just like, and this is why we say all the time, and, you know, this is not a new thing to say. This is why we distinguish Zionism from Judaism. Now, usually it's a couple of Jewish guys who get called upon to explain why that is. In this case, for a shiksa, she does a pretty good job.
She does, and it's important to have someone like Candace Owens who's coming out of that community addressing it, because as we were talking about the other day, and as Nick pointed out after he got attacked by the ADL.
Right.
The majority of Zionists on planet Earth are Christian.
Are Christian, yes.
They're not even Jews. So this gives the opportunity for somebody with authority in that community who speaks the language of Christians to tell Christians, you're wrong. You're wrong about Zionism. This is not in keeping with Judaism, in a way that we cannot address that community. Because in the end, they just want Jews there for Jesus bait. They think the Jews who don't convert are going to hell. You know, it's not that they like Jews. It's that they need the Jews there to fulfill the prophecy.
Exactly.
So she can speak to those people in a way that we cannot, because, you know, these Christian Zionists are anti-Semitic anyway. Their basic premise is anti-Semitic. It's that the Jews are wrong, and they need to be there for Jesus to come, and then they're either going to be corrected or they're going to be thrown into the fiery pit.
That's right.
They're going to get another chance to accept Jesus.
Yeah, right. Yes. And so good on her for pointing that out, and good on her for not being afraid to say that. You know, I mean, this is part of what comes with being uncancelable. You know, she's probably popular enough to the point where she's not really cancelable.
Sure.
Right. I mean, you have to reach a certain strata of the game to be able to just look a guy like Rabbi Shmuley in the eye and say a thing like that. Or a guy like Norm Finkelstein, who's already been canceled. Right. I mean, he's already been, you know, ostracized from these networks. But, you know, she obviously, and look, as Nick pointed out in that hotspot video, people have tried to deplatform her. They've tried to cancel her. They've tried to shut her down for saying these things. And so good on her for saying that. I mean, because that is something he was not expecting coming from her. When someone stands up to you like that in that kind of way.
You could tell, it was like he got smacked in the face with a shovel.
Exactly.
He had no response to that. He was like, oh shit, she's going there.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
She's pulling that Book of Revelation shit on me. But this is also a teachable moment. You know, there's a lot of talk from a lot of grifting podcasters who have been profiting off of Gaza for the last 10 months about political maturity. And it is these very same people who will most often call people like Jimmy, like ourselves, red-brown alliance and betraying the left. You want to talk about political maturity? You make common cause where you can. You don't have to agree with everything that Candace Owens believes to make common cause with Candace Owens on genocide. That does not make you. You want to talk about political maturity? It is not backing power crystal wielding presidential candidates like Marianne Williamson. That's not political maturity. Political maturity is, Candace Owens has a voice that reaches a community we have no authority in, a community that will never listen to us. We could never go to that community and have the impact that this clip is going to have in that community in the way they think about Zionism. So, you work with her on that.
Right. Exactly. And she is one of the few examples of people on the right who have spoken out on this issue in a way that we think is important.
You think Nick agrees with Candace Owens on anything
exactly
other than this?
Right. Exactly. Very well said. Very importantly stated.
Please clap.